thanks for listening. This is Brian Hurley from Business Performance Improvement. The podcast Lean Six Sigma Bursts are short lessons, comments, Q&A, and insights. If you have a question, send your question through the Anchor app, and we might feature you on a future episode. Or contact me at biz-pi.com. I recently was teaching a class, and we were talking about defining good process improvement projects. The first section I'll be going through is discussing what to do when you don't have data or how to handle that situation, how to go after and try and find the data. It's really important to pick a good project, especially for your first time going through a training class, something that already has data instead of trying to create it from the very beginning. If you do want to collect data, go ahead and start that and then go do a different project and then come back when you've got a little bit of data collected up and run that as your second project. So here's some comments I made during that class, and then you'll hear a second question I answered around data. If you say, I don't have any data, that's something that could be a barrier for this particular project. Now, if you can gather the data quickly or retrieve it somewhere that already exists, that's fine. Definitely go do that. But if you say, well, we don't measure that today and we haven't measured that before, I'll have to start collecting it. It might take you a couple of weeks to get data, and now we're already a month into the project, into the training, and you're losing that time. So that's why we recommend not to pick a project if you have no data. But if the data is there, you just never extracted it out or pulled it or put it in a spreadsheet, that's fine. You can still do that. I'd also be very persistent about data. A lot of times people are going to say, we don't have that data. Keep asking. Don't stop at the first no. Ask someone else. Ask them in another way. Come back a day later and say, I was thinking, don't we track this somewhere else? Wouldn't it show up in that report? Wouldn't it be in this system? Don't we have a paper copy somewhere? Like, don't take no for an answer the first time. Ask around. I found like the third or fourth person I've asked, I found that data. So sometimes it's there and people are just, let's just say they're not sure how much work they want to put into it. And they'll say, no, I don't think we can get that. And then you come back and you're like, okay, I guess they're not going to go, hey, let me see what I can do. Let me see if I can find something. Oh, I was able to find something. Here you go. Be very persistent about making sure that that data actually does not exist before you just give up on it. I've been able to find data that people said originally didn't exist. We got so much data being collected these days. It'd be a surprise if there wasn't data on something. Let me pause for a moment to tell you about our sponsor, Creative Safety Supply. They are a great resource for free guides, infographics, and continuous improvement tools. I recommend starting with their 5S guide. It includes breakdowns of the 5 pillars, ways to begin implementing 5S, and even organization tips and color charts. From red tags to floor marking, it's all there. Download the guide for free at creativesafetysupply.com/5S. The next question I got was around how much data do you need to collect for your baseline going into a project to fill out in the project charter? I would say as much data as you can, because we can always scope it down and take out older data if it's not relevant, right? But it may be relevant. So if you can get 3 years worth of data, great. If you can get only 2 weeks of data, as long as there's like at least daily data, I mean, if you want to get into at least 20, 30, 50 data points, that would be really good for a baseline. That for some processes, that's 3 months. Other people, that's 3 hours, and they can get 50 data points. Like, it depends on the process too. I would say try to get enough historical data that represents typical scenarios. Because last week might have been an odd week, and you have 1 week of data that's from a strange situation. It's not a very good baseline. But if last week's data is all you have, and it's pretty typical of all the weeks prior, then it's probably okay data, especially if you have hundreds of data points that week. It depends a little bit, but you want to get more than a couple dozen data points, just because there's variability in the numbers. We'll talk about this a little bit more, but 30 data points is a typical goal to shoot for, because it usually picks up a lot of the variation by that amount of numbers. We start seeing more of the extreme edges of the variation by 30 data points. The quick answer would be 30 or more. More the better. 30 data points of that metric I'll take 1,000 or 10,000 if you have it. Like we can, the software and Excel and stuff, it can crunch numbers so fast. It's not too overwhelming, but we can always chop it down to the last 100 if that makes more sense too. See what you get, see what you can find, and then we can always cut it down. But I don't turn away data if I have a chance. I'll say, they like, how much time do you want to go back? How far can you go back? Within reason. Like I don't go back to 2020, like, or before 2020 anymore, because that was a whole different situation, right? We are in a post-pandemic world. 2019 data makes no sense for most of our projects. Like that was a different world. Stuff like that, obviously I'm not gonna go that far back. But if you got 2 weeks of data, you got 50 or 100 samples, that's pretty good. I'll take that. I'll be happy with that. We also don't want to summarize data yet either. So if you get 10 data points a day, don't say you've got one data point, the average of the day. Count all 10 data points as individual records. We can always summarize the data later. Don't lose the individual records and the individual transactions. So someone said, I got 5 data points, the average of each year. I was like, no, actually you have average, every day you had many different requests. You have hundreds of data points each year. You have actually thousands of data points. You just summarized them down into a number. So you got rid of some of the detail.
Lean6sigmadefinition.com has a list of glossary items about popular process improvement terms, along with a history of Lean and Six Sigma methods, and key influencers like Dr. Edward Stemming, Henry Ford, Taiichi Ono, Shigeo Shingo, and many more. You can also learn how to access affordable Lean and Six Sigma training and certification. Visit Lean6sigmadefinition.com.